In early 1468, tensions between Bohemia and its neighbors erupted in a war when Viktorin Podebrady, son of King George Podebrady of Bohemia, led an incursion into Austria. This caused Emperor Frederick III to call on his adopted son and ally, King Matthias I of Hungary and Croatia, for help. Pope Paul II had already made a crusading call to liberate Bohemia from a heretic king, and the Bohemian Catholic estates offered Matthias the crown. So, with this war adequately justified, Matthias's army crossed the Bohemian border on the 31st of March. After an initial apparently successful advance into Bohemia, Matthias found himself outmaneuvered by King George Podebrady and forced to negotiate to save his very expensive mercenary army from complete destruction. Matthias promised to make peace and negotiate on behalf of Podebrady with the Pope if Podebrady let him go, which was agreed to. Matthias was lying, and continued the war the moment he got out of that precarious situation. The Bohemian War had an immediate benefit for Matthias. It relieved the burden on his coffers caused by the Black Army, which was allowed to loot and raid Bohemia as payment for its services. Over the next few years, Matthias would achieve control of majority Catholic Moravia, Silesia, and Lusatia. The Catholic estates of Bohemia met at Olmütz on the 3rd of May, 1469, and officially declared Matthias as their new elected king of Bohemia. Matthias's advance into Bohemia made neighboring rulers nervous. Emperor Frederick III and King Casimir IV of Poland-Lithuania proceeded to form an anti-Matthias alliance with George Podebrady after Podebrady once again promised the Bohemian crown to Casimir's son Vladislav. To try and avert a larger war, Matthias and Frederick met at Vienna to negotiate in 1470, but the talks went nowhere. The two already had reasons to not trust each other. Frederick had not delivered the promised monetary support to Matthias for the Bohemian and Ottoman fronts, and Matthias believed Frederick was funding his internal enemies. On the other side, Frederick suspected Matthias was deliberately allowing Ottoman raids to reach Austria, and suspected that Matthias was funding an ongoing rebellion in Styria. That rebellion just happened to be led by the same Andreas Baumkircher who saved Frederick III during the conflict with his brother in 1462. Baumkircher's revolt ended in 1471. One story goes that Baumkircher was tricked by Frederick and his men in Graz. He was granted immunity for negotiations until the Vespers bells rang, before which he had to leave the city. The bells just happened to ring an hour early, and Baumkircher was then arrested and beheaded. Higher power interceded into the Bohemian conflict on the 22nd of March 1471, when King George Podebrady suddenly died. As was agreed to, the 15-year-old Catholic Polish Prince Vladislav entered Bohemia proper without an army and was elected as king by the majority moderate Hussite estates of Bohemia at the Diet in Kutna Hora. After pledging to respect the will of the Bohemian Diet and the Hussite Catholic compacts, Vladislav was crowned in Prague on the 22nd of August. The Pope refused to recognize Vladislav as king, who was seen as a Catholic associating with heretics, and still pushed the Catholic estates towards Matthias. Interestingly, Viktorin Podebrady, who was captured early in the war, entered Matthias's service soon after the death of his father, but I digress. With Vladislav's ascension, the conflict entered a new phase. Matthias was no longer fighting a heretic Hussite king, but a Catholic Polish prince. On the home front, Matthias's position was already on shaky ground. The estates of the realm of St. Stephen were willing to tolerate the increased taxes, the Black Army, the reforms, and the abuses of power, as long as it was tied to the anti-Ottoman cause. The estates were not exactly in favor of a protracted war against Bohemian heretics, but they definitely did not support a war against another Catholic prince. It was perceived that Matthias was spending a lot more money and time on this self-aggrandizing invasion of Bohemia instead of on the Ottoman front. Matthias's closest advisor, Chancellor Archbishop Ivan Vitis, stood up in the royal council already in 1470 and informed the king that the realm was no longer willing to spend money or spill blood for another state. The king slapped Vites in front of everyone present. This and Vladislav's ascension were the drops that made Vitez's glass overflow. While on campaign in Bohemia in 1471, Matthias was informed of a captured courier carrying secret messages between his vassals. They were preparing a conspiracy to overthrow him. The conspiracy was led by Archbishop Vites and his nephew Bishop Janus Pannonius. It allegedly included other allies and appointees of Matthias like Emmerich and Stephen Zapoля, Bishop Oswald II of Zagreb and his brother Ivan, former Ban of Croatia. Magnates like Nikola Sovilok and other high-ranking members of the Hungarian and Croatian estates were also implicated. It is alleged to have included all but 9 of the 70 to 80 royally appointed Ispans and Župans of the realm. The plan was to stage a coup, overthrow Matthias, and invite Prince Casimir of Poland, another son of King Casimir IV, to take the throne. After learning of the conspiracy, Matthias left the Bohemian front and rushed back to Buda as fast as possible. When he got there, he kept the fact that he knew of the conspiracy hidden and became extraordinarily amicable towards the royal councillors. The magnates and the prelates of the council were showered with gifts and compliments for their service and loyalty. Around this time, Nikola Sovilok was named the new king of Bosnia in vassalage to Matthias. Then Matthias summoned an extraordinary diet of the realm. When it assembled, he reassured everyone of his coronation oaths and his love and devotion for the constitutional order. He promised to again summon the diet on a regular basis. He promised to ask the diet for permission and listen to their advice on all relevant matters. He promised to stop hiring foreign officials and commanders and cease raising illegal taxes. The Diet could only answer back with acclamations of support for their sovereign. The man just told them everything they wanted to hear. This was once again their elected king, the son of a hero of the realm, protector of their rights, liberties, and privileges, their defender from the Ottoman menace. However, Vites and Pannonius were not fooled, and they had gone too far to turn back now. In September of 1471, printed pamphlets flooded the realm, calling for Prince Casimir, the natural lord and heir of Hungary, to dethrone the tyrant that usurps the royal title. Soon after, Casimir crossed the border with his soldiers and Janus Pannonius opened the gates of Nitra to them. There they waited for a large rebellion to begin, led by Archbishop Vites. It didn't. Matthias had marched to Estrogom, put Vites under house arrest, and stripped him of all his offices of state. Prince Casimir soon went back to Poland, and Pannonius fled for safety. His ally, Bishop Oswald II of Zagreb, found him refuge in the castle of Medvedgrad, overlooking the two rival towns of Zagreb. Both Vites and Pannonius died of an illness in 1472. Vites was succeeded by Archbishop Johann Beckenschläger, a completely different man from his predecessor. He was a far more corrupt politician and warrior than an intellectual priest. Matthias was far more lenient with other suspected conspirators, keeping their implications in the treasonous conspiracy as blackmail to be used at a convenient time. The king kept none of his promises he made to the Diet.